In the heart of a smoky, dimly lit bar, the noise of clinking glasses and muffled chatter fills the air. At the far end of the room, a woman leans against the counter, her face half illuminated by the flickering neon lights. She's alone, but she's not lonely. Then a Navy SEAL walks in, his confident strides loud enough to cut through the noise. He orders a drink, looks around, and spots her. "What's your call sign?" he asks, with the kind of curiosity that comes with being battle-tested. Her response? "Ghost 9. The room freezes. The Navy SEAL's hand trembles, his drink slipping from his fingers, splashing across the bar. He doesn't blink. He doesn't speak. He simply stares at her. And in that moment, the past that neither of them could escape was about to come rushing back. The woman, known to the world as Ghost 9, wasn't a name you threw around lightly. To the uninitiated, it might sound like a cool, mysterious nickname. But to those who knew the truth, it was something else entirely. A ghost in the military world, a name spoken only in whispers. She didn't care for the attention. Her days of proving herself, fighting for recognition, were long gone. She had learned that silence was often the loudest way to speak, and dignity the sharpest weapon. But as the Navy SEAL stared at her with wide eyes, something inside her stirred. She had spent years running from that very name. Now it had found her again, and with it the ghosts of her past. Ghost 9 had once been a name that echoed in the hearts of soldiers and commanders alike. It was more than a call sign. It was a reminder of everything that came before, of sacrifice, loss, and the cost of war. Her real name was Emily Harris, but that name didn't belong to her anymore. It belonged to a time long buried, back when she was just another Marine, caught up in a mission that would change her life forever. It had started like any other operation, a quiet night in a war zone, a routine assignment. But that night, something went terribly wrong. A mission that was supposed to take hours stretched into a nightmare that would drag on for days. They were surrounded, trapped. Emily had been the one to stay behind, a decision made not out of heroism but necessity. Her unit had been hit hard, men were falling, and the enemy was closing in. But Emily wasn't like the others. Her training was different. She was trained to disappear, to become a shadow, to leave no trace. And that's exactly what she did. Alone, she led the enemy away, drawing them into a deadly game of cat and mouse. Hours turned into days, and yet she kept moving, never looking back. When it was finally over, when the dust had settled and the mission was deemed a success, the commander's report came through. And there, among the final words of the operation, was the name she would come to hate. Ghost 9. It wasn't a badge of honor. It was a reminder of what she had lost, of the comrades who never made it back, of the men who would never again taste their mother's cooking, feel the sun on their faces, or see the children they left behind. And yet, there she was, sitting at the bar, years later, the ghost of a name she had never wanted to wear, still haunting her. The Navy SEAL who had asked her that fateful question had been part of the same mission, part of the same operation that had made her a legend in the shadows. His name, Tyler Reaper Lawson, was one she recognized immediately. They had crossed paths once, briefly. He had been one of the men sent in after she completed her diversion. But it wasn't until that moment in the bar that she realized the weight of the connection between them. Tyler was no stranger to death. He had seen it, smelled it, felt it. But Ghost 9, that name meant something deeper. It meant survival, it meant sacrifice, and it meant that Emily had become something more than a soldier. She had become a myth. But myths, as it turned out, weren't always meant to be remembered. Tyler wasn't just surprised, he was shaken. The drink he had ordered sat untouched on the counter, the ice cubes slowly melting in the now warm liquid. He cleared his throat, trying to regain his composure. You're Ghost 9? Emily didn't flinch. "I was, and that's a name you don't throw around lightly. Tyler's mind raced. Why would she be here? After everything. After the way the military had treated her. After the way they had discarded her once her usefulness had ended. She had been a tool, a weapon. And when the mission had ended, she was left behind, a casualty of bureaucracy, cast aside as if her contributions didn't matter. It was a story he knew all too well. He had seen countless heroes fade into obscurity, forgotten by those who had once sworn to honor them. "Why here?" Tyler asked, his voice a whisper. "Because I'm still alive," Emily replied, her eyes cold, calculating. And in that moment, something shifted in Tyler. He saw her for who she truly was, not a hero, not a myth, but a woman who had given everything, and had been left to pick up the pieces of her shattered soul alone. But he wasn't alone in this. Tyler couldn't shake the feeling that there were more like Emily out there, more soldiers who had been used, discarded, and forgotten, and he would be damned if he let this one slip through the cracks. Tyler stood up, his hand now gripping the edge of the bar as if he were holding on to something, anything, to ground him. "You don't belong here, Emily. You're a hero. You shouldn't be stuck in a bar like this." Emily's gaze didn't waver. "You think I don't know that?" She paused, her voice soft yet piercing. "I've spent my life running from that name, Tyler. From the expectations. From the men who thought they could use me and then walk away. I'm not their hero. I'm not anyone's hero." Tyler opened his mouth to speak, but the words caught in his throat. He had no response. He didn't have the right. But then, just as he turned to leave, something in him snapped. He couldn't walk away. He couldn't let her slip through his fingers. He reached into his pocket and pulled out his phone, dialing a number he had sworn he would never call again. "It's me," he said when the line picked up. "I need to talk to someone. It's about Ghost 9. Tyler didn't know what he expected when he made the call. Perhaps nothing. Perhaps everything. But within minutes, the atmosphere in the bar shifted. It wasn't a dramatic entrance. It wasn't loud. It wasn't flashy. But one by one, a group of men and women, all dressed in civilian clothes, began to enter. They sat quietly, observing. They were veterans. They were the ones who had seen it all. And they recognized Ghost 9. With a silent nod, Tyler took his seat, and the room, without a single word, began to change. The silent resistance that Emily had carried with her for so long was no longer hers alone. Now there were others who understood the injustice she had felt her entire life. The quiet, unseen battle she fought every day was finally recognized. The men and women in the room stood together, without a single word, forming a circle around her. Tyler stood by her side, his voice barely audible when he spoke. "They'll never forget you again." It wasn't a statement of defiance. It wasn't a promise of vengeance. It was a declaration of respect. And for the first time in years, Emily's shoulders relaxed. Her breath steadied. She wasn't just Ghost 9 anymore. She was Emily Harris. And that was enough. In a world that often forgets its heroes, Emily's story is a reminder that silent strength carries the loudest message, not in words, not in actions, but in the quiet dignity of simply existing. As you reflect on this story, remember that true heroes aren't always the ones on the front lines. Sometimes they're the ones who quietly fade into the background, carrying their wounds in silence, but still fighting, still surviving. If you're watching this, wherever you are, take a moment to honor the unseen battles that shape us. Leave a comment below with your thoughts. Share this story with someone who needs to hear it. And don't forget to subscribe for more stories of true heroes, the ones you may never see, but whose strength is felt in every step they take.